Hey everybody, this is Dr. Kevin McGovern, and we're back. We took a little time off with the Velocity RX podcast. So please like and subscribe. This helps us out. This gets our message out to help me save 1 million arms. I'm going to be more pinpoint on the next few podcasts about educating the public about certain concepts of pitching. And the one near and dear to my heart is something that is actually a made up term. I looked through all of my textbooks before coming on today, and I did not see the word layback in any of those textbooks. Okay. So, layback is a term of essentially stretching the joint, the shoulder joint, well beyond its normal range of motion to a weakened position to throw the ball as hard as you can the other way. Don't really understand that. So, I brought on an expert to talk about that today because I'm not sure if he fully understands that twisted science. And his name is Jason Colleran. He's been on my show. I think this might be his fourth time with me, and I thank him very much. He is the owner, inventor of an unbelievable piece of equipment called the Kinetic Arm. And guess what the Kinetic Arm does? Oh, yeah. It prevents the arm from getting into excessive layback. So, Jason, thank you very much for coming on. While you're introducing yourself, I'm going to put up on the screen some pictures of, and I warn the people watching on YouTube, these will not be pictures that are you have to putting them up with caution. Okay, so Jason, again, thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate it once again.
Yeah, thanks again for having me. Always a pleasure, and looking forward to diving in deeper and giving some context to the terminology that's used and made up, as you said, but also giving a lot of context and education and kind of visual examples to help parents and a lot of practitioners that need it that may not be familiar. We can help them get a better understanding to protect these arms. So looking forward to diving in.
Awesome. So I'm trying to share my screen here. Oh, there we go. So as you can see, so this is um a picture of what people have called layback. And you can see it has essentially my Tommy John injury formula of drift, which means the center of gravity has gone forward first, drag the back foot, and shrug, meaning we're using our upper traps, and that all results in this ugly picture right here. And this is a high school senior who's, I would say at 100, I mean, 45, maybe that's even 75 degrees past normal external rotation. Jason, what say you from this position here?
So for me, I always look at it, first in a static position. So I always bring up as an example, no thrower on earth can actively go all the way back into that range where they end up into this, as you say, made up term of layback, and it's similar to Pilates in the fitness industry. But there's a lot in baseball where people just make up terminology, and it's unfortunate because where we have a breakdown in communication and there's no stable foundation in which to communicate with. I think that's a big problem. So we have these made up terms such as layback, but yeah, if they can't actively get there and muscle stabilize joints, then we're passively putting that into a range where now all that stress is going to go to the connective tissue. And instead of looking at range of motion, I always say we should look at the range of available joint position, which you just showed. We're far exceeding the active range of available joint position. So if we're constantly forcing it back into this position, how much is enough? Because I've never seen one go 360 degrees and then come back up, because mechanically that's inefficient. And then with timing, it's probably just not possible. But not only active range of or active range of control, as well as available range of joint position. So it's unfortunate to see the stretching and smashing and jamming that's going on and putting them into the positions that are really accelerating the injury process, because they think that that's going to get them velocity. Well, it's also going to get you injuries.
Unfortunately, yeah. So here's a little guy. I mean, look at the position of the elbow. Now I know it's an AI, so AI mess with his fingers, but I could throw up the shoulder position is exactly the same as the real photo. Um, I just don't see how the shoulder can take that time and time again and the elbow and still be okay. What say you?
And even just a basic example that I've brought up recently with stretching and going into passive ranges. Did you see that Castle Flex product that Ronald Acuna was endorsing?
No, I haven't. Tell us about that.
So you put your foot in it. It's a strap. You pull on it. So you're pulling into dorsiflexion, and you're almost pulling into knee extension and full hip flexion. So I think the goal is to, as they say, stretch. Which, what does that mean? We're elongating it, but essentially when you continue to do that and you do lengthen that tissue, now you've destabilized the structure. So if the connective tissue around that joint, the joint capsule, is now a longer range than it should be, or a longer length than it should be, he ended up with 2 ACL tears. I'm not saying the device did that. They pulled the ads real quick, but my wife and I went to a game, and they were pretty aggressively, passively stretching him on the field. And she said, "Why are they doing that?" And I said, "Because they don't understand structure and function and muscle inhibition." So just something that basic, and then we look at something as complex as the shoulder, and then we think, okay, what are we really doing with the shoulder? Because as you know, at the probably the high school level, definitely at the college level, I'm sure at the professional level, the large majority of these athletes have asymptomatic labrum tears.
Oh, you just again the you know the people that are teaching that have never been in a gross anatomy class, have never examined the dead body, right? You take, just so people know, the labrum is this piece of cartilaginous tissue that goes right on top of the humerus, and it only has so much give. So when you take the shoulder 45, 75, 90 degrees, that picture I showed you, that little leaguer, that's 90 degrees past the stop, like the stop sign, stop. It can't. And it you'll get stretched out labrums, and then people will look at MRI and be like, "Oh, I have a 35% slap tear." Well, yeah, of course you do. Like you can't get that. And everyone teaching that, so I'm going to put up everyone's like, "Well, you should put up, what you teach." So I will do that. So here is my layback. Now, layback, again, is the cocking phase of throwing, right? We have it in tennis, we have it in football, we have it in the javelin, but no one except baseball goes 90 degrees past the end point. So I believe that you get layback from thoracic extension, scapular depression, and pec extensibility to be in this position like he is here. This is a power position. One, I wouldn't want my face anywhere near this hammer fist that's coming down, right? I wouldn't want to be a board that's going to be in front of him that he's going to smash through. Now, he does have his tiptoe in contact with the ground, okay? But his arm is in extremely significantly better position. And as if we fast forward 2 or 3 frames of this still photo, he does get his foot off the ground, which allows him to rotate around the front foot. Okay. You cannot rotate around and have rotational force with 2 points of two levers into the ground, right? Because then it's just going to go up the kinetic chain. Just like you don't have a merry-go-round that has 2 posts. It has 1 post to spin around. Human body's the same way. When you have 2 posts, the body tries to spin, the force is shot upwards into the shoulder. I don't understand dragging the foot. No, quarterbacks don't do it. Tennis players don't do it. Javelin throwers don't do it. Why do pitchers do it? I don't get it. What say you, sir?
I think it's always interesting to look at anatomical function and that picture where it looks like the center of mass is more, I don't want to say over the front foot, because anatomically it's going to let them pull more with the trunk flexors. So I was
I mean, he's
reading
in
what the
basically a mini lunge, right? He's really centered over his center of mass there.
yeah, so that center of mass is almost over that front point of contact or base of support. Um, when it's in the middle, it's kind of like hitting. If you're out front, you're not going to have much power. If you're in the rear, then you can use
Correct. Yep.
what you have for power. So Chris Butchek brought this up to me. He was a first round draft pick way back at Auburn. He's a local instructor, great guy. So he was talking about kind of rotating on planes. So it's almost like purely rotation this way and then almost extension flexion this way. So he was talking about finding kind of the most efficient combination of those two, and I thought that was really interesting. But when you when you talk about the foot position, for the listeners at home, stand up, get in like an athletic stance, and then drop one foot back. So it looks like you're trying to go into layback, right? So keep that back foot flat. So they'll be just like this. And I'll rotate back and see how much layback you get. And then I want you to do this: pivot that back heel so your foot and your hip are externally rotated, and then you'll find that you get more motion. So just another example of how structure dictates function. So for coaches, and I actually brought that up to a pitching coach, um, does a lot of motion capture, great guy, very, very in depth, but it's these little details that coaches and parents are missing. So sometimes look at the foot position, because if you're looking
100%.
at something in slow motion or a still shot and thinking, damn, they're not getting much layback. Well, if you limited that range of motion below that, then it's going to limit the range above that, or you're going to have to create these, structural defects to try to achieve what you think should be the superficial end range. So that's I urge parents and athletes to do that, just to see, oh wow, maybe I do need to look a couple levels down, because I can stretch this all I want, but if I'm limited in range, at the trunk, at the hip, at the foot, then I'm just going to keep stretching and stretching until something breaks. And then, as you're showing in those examples, the arm's going to have to compensate. So now we're driving shoulder and elbow stress up.
I'm glad you mentioned foot position. Front foot position is really dictated by, or, front foot strike by, where the center of gravity is, right? So many kids don't move correctly. So many of these pitching gurus are not teaching kids how to do fundamental movement. So they're literally letting them drift, right? Because you lift your leg up and I mean, I got a picture of David Cohn in this unbelievable one-legged squat. Look at Roger Clemens. Look at Kurt Schilling. Look at Greg Maddux. Look at all the pictures of yesteryear. You're going to see a nice vertical drop and then move forward. But now they're letting these kids just drift forward, and they're like, oh, they're promoting. Yeah, every time someone drifts, the arm never ever catches up. It can't. Okay, so then you get all your center of mass is forward, and you just mentioned it hitting, it's stepping in the bucket, right? If you put your center of mass all the way forward when there's a curveball and you got fooled and you're hitting off your front foot, you can't do it. There's no power. But yet you're teaching someone to throw the baseball at max effort by doing mechanically opposite of what you would teach hitting, and it's the same it's basically the same kind of rotational movement. Okay, and why you're doing something that you didn't teach 30 years ago that you're doing now. Yes, our pitching's throwing harder. Okay, great. But the radar guns are down to the, point, take miles per hour out to 3 digits now. Okay. Before they were getting it right at home plate. So, I've even had people try to tell me that Nolan Ryan didn't throw 90 miles. Not only did he throw 100, he didn't throw 90. I've got a viral clip over 1 million views. This one moron on there saying that he didn't throw 90. Dude, are you kidding me? Like it's insane. And I guess if you want to, like last night, right? You want to watch two pitchers, okay? One former Cy Young winner and one guy who could be a Cy Young winner. If you want to watch them be out after 3 innings, great. If that's your product, fine. You know, if that's what that because that's what you're getting. So they're either out because they're ineffective and can't throw strikes, but all of them were 95 plus on the gun, they're out, or they're hurt. And those are the guys that made it. How about the tens of thousands that haven't made it? Which is why your product is helping so many kids who to understand, because not only is your product bracing them, it's also giving them kinesthetic sense on where to stop. That's been the feedback of my guys, that when the brace is off, they now mind body know, okay, this is my stop. This is where I need to stop.
Yeah, with young kids, so we could say that the bones are growing faster than the muscles, so they have these longer levers and they have to produce more torque or force, and that can lead to avulsion fractures. But a lot of times we see the arm kind of lag behind, so the parents and coaches get frustrated because, hey, that's one thing you hear a lot: get your arm up, do this, do that. Well, again, we have adults throwing a 5-ounce ball and kids throwing a 5-ounce ball. But in, I think, every other sport, soccer, basketball, football, we use a little bit of common sense. Baseball is behind, and they throw a lighter ball. So they're not using a 30-ounce bat, obviously. But anyways, so if neurologically the brain is orchestrating the most efficient solution for them to throw that ball. They may not be strong enough to have, I don't like saying motor pattern because pattern indicates that it's the same every time, and it's definitely not. So I'm going to stay away from patterns. But with that movement that we want them to repeat efficiently, what the kinetic arm can do is it can prevent that arm from lagging behind. And then what that's going to do is offload stress from that anterior shoulder and the elbow. So if we can prevent the permanent structural damage on these kids from a young age, how many years can we be adding to their playing career? Even if they just want to have fun and we can keep them healthy and out there doing what they love, that's a big win. And even up to high level college and professional guys, what they've said is, because it covers so much surface area, they get that kind of proprioceptive feedback element. And some of them
100%.
have said, wow, I didn't realize my arm path was so sloppy. So a lot of times we'll hear that it kind of helps to, correct their mechanics or, optimize them. So it's, and to your point with layback, what a lot of physical therapists have said is they use it as an active constraint. So if you're returning to play and you're maybe not comfortable, going into this made up layback, it can help to give more support. And then in my facility, I think it's close to a dozen guys after a slap repair, labrum surgery, and about the same after Tommy John. So they've been cleared to throw. They still have that anterior tilt, and they're kind of throwing darts. Well, when they put on the sleeve, it's almost like their brain senses, okay, the demand for force output or stabilizing that structure isn't as high. So we'll see them actually start to go into horizontal abduction, external rotation, or layback, as we call it. So it's interesting to see the many ways that it helps. But we're really in baseball, we're exceeding the stress threshold of the tissue and the structure, and that's while we're chasing velocity, we're also chasing injuries.
100%. You mentioned another thing about the surface area. The other thing that, I mean, constantly I see kids that destroy the scapulohumeral rhythm, that do not move. So for those playing at home, depending on what textbook you read, for every 3 degrees, your arm gets into elevation, abduction. Anyway, your shoulder blade needs to turn into the spine and depress 2 degrees. Some people have it a 1-to-1. I learned it as 3-to-2. But what we never want are the beach muscles to fire, right? The upper traps. When I see, the inverted W, the T, that's all firing the upper traps. That's making the shoulder blade move opposite that it's supposed to. And when that happens, start the egg timer. You're going to get hurt. So the kinetic arm, because it has articulation to the shoulder blade in the back, really promotes and helps them keep their shoulder blade in a downward and depressed area, inhibiting the upper trap. People find it easier, especially after doing a multitude of scapular depression exercise, which I make them do. They feel now that they really can then feel that, thoracic extension, scapular depression, and pec extensibility. My AK layback, as we saw in that picture. So that's another benefit of this.
And also talking about the kind of the musculature. So we've got the rotator cuff that kind of compresses that humeral head into the glenoid, and as you mentioned earlier, the labrum, kind of the cartilaginous surface that almost makes it a deeper socket. And it's not a very deep socket. It's almost kind of like a golf tee. So
That's a great
while
analogy.
the sleeve is on, it's also helping to offload that mass. So we've got to think, if you're standing up and you're under anesthesia or you wanted to Botox your shoulder, it's going to fall right out of socket. So there is a little bit of muscle tension, and that's not to say that contributes to fatigue. It's kind of it has to be there to keep your shoulder stable. But with all this throwing and all this distraction force, it's more stress on the musculature and the tissue that's keeping that shoulder complex stable. So another thing is, we have you've probably seen the almost kind of home plate shaped polymer on the top.
Mm-hmm.
So we think about like the supraspinatus. That's about the first, again, depending on which textbook, 10 to
First 10 or
15
15 degrees. Yep. You
of
got it.
abduction. So we're putting a little bit of tension into abduction to hopefully offload that, because if we have that anterior tilt or that depressed scapula, that's kind of our preset neutral that we're working from. I mean, when we're going up to the side, if this is the humerus and this is the scapula, we don't have that upward rotation. It's almost causing impingement. So that's another goal that people probably won't realize, and that's okay. But that's one of the goals that I had, was to help with that first 10 to 15 of abduction, because if we can cut down on, something like supraspinatus tendonitis and take some load off that tissue as well, even if we're getting impingement, hopefully that helps. So just
Well,
another
it
added
definitely
bonus.
helps so nicely because no one, all these kids have protracted and elevated shoulders. Why? Because they're on this all day, right? Or they're playing video games. They're not. It's no one has passed my shoulder coordination test, my game test, which really is just measuring the scapulohumeral rhythm. So if you're failing the scapulohumeral rhythm and then taking a ball and throwing it at max effort, your your chances of staying healthy are slim to none. And the kinetic arm definitely helps with that mechanism. Like I have seen kids before and at, like you can have them throw and move, take it off, and their shoulder blade moves better. So bless you for seeing, and I'm not the, I'm a reformed altar boy, but bless you for creating a product that is helping so many kids, adults, and you should have 10 times more. We both should have 10 times more traction than we do in the game because the injury epidemic continues to get worse. You have people teaching literally the wrong stuff. Not like, I wouldn't necessarily, just stuff that is literally a no-go. Like literally a no-go. And they're getting the clicks and the likes and the injury rate just keeps going up and up. And I don't know if I told you that, I had my first gal a couple years ago with Tommy John surgery because, her coach was throwing weighted balls out in the outfield. Like, you know, teenage girl, 14 years old, completely not developed to do anything that anywhere near that kind of exercise. And, I can't necessarily fault the coach. He doesn't know. He looks at like YouTube, like you and I do, and he just doesn't. He's trying to help out. Oh, this worked. Look, these guys are saying this. Look how many likes they have. Let's try this on the field tomorrow. And boom.
And that's, yeah, that I always say the road to injury is paved with great intentions. But it's not what these coaches don't know that's the problem. It's what they think they know. And maybe they learned it, or it's like a game of telephone, right? So it gets distorted every time it's relayed or every time it's copied, and they're quick to regurgitate, pardon my language, some bullshit that they heard from a social media guy because he has a big following, or the person's been around for a while. And another one I like to say is, just because they got to the top of the hill first, it does not mean they belong there.
That's for sure.
You look
That
at
is for sure.
some of these guys that have big followings and they're doing heavy symmetrically loaded lifting, just flipping it. It blows my mind. And they have a lot of injured guys that are hanging around their facility. So
Hmm.
some of the guys that I had that were out of Vandy, they said, "Hey, how come so and so in Florida? How come he doesn't train us like this?" I said, "Well, he doesn't understand resistance mechanics. He didn't play. He was a tennis player and a power lifter. That's not baseball." So if you're not able to apply force with precision, and also keep in mind that structure dictates function, being able to lift heavy things and use some big words, it means nothing if you don't understand the practical application.
And how
And
many Tommy Johns has that person had in their major league organization? They now sit at the top of the heap of? Too many to count, including including the franchise who plays right field.
yeah, I just I sent a message through social media to their team doc. It probably won't get there, but just saying, like, hey, he needs a kinetic arm. But on that note, one of the organizations we have talked about in the past, that's had a lot of pitching injuries this year, and big hamstring issue in the past. Their medical director recently reached out and ordered more.
Good.
We just had a catching coordinator, from one of the other teams reach out, and some rehab directors from another organization. So I think they're starting to understand. Okay, if what we're doing year after year is not, I'm going to call it not successful, because if you have, I mean, yeah, there's going to be accidents here or there, and
Or no, nothing, not just none of us are saying that we're going to 100% prevent injury. That's
yeah,
crazy, right?
and then I will throw out in their defense, so I don't make too many people mad. By the time they're getting these athletes, they're pretty beat up already. However, knowing that, I think they should really, do no harm, but really proceed with caution and train them in the most safe environment they can and be precise. So when I see, I was at the Reds facility and talking to a strength coach, and one of the pitching coaches was there, a great guy. And this, strength coach is talking about playing with these water bags. And I said, well, what's your goal? And he just kind of looked at me and I said, if you don't have a goal, why are you using that tool?
What's your
And I
goal?
said,
What's your intention?
well, I said,
Right.
riddle me this. What's the line of force? What's the point of application of force? What's the axis? Where's the moment arm? And what are you doing? No idea. So it's a lot of this monkey see, monkey do. And in these
Mm-hmm.
organizations, you got to remember they're cheap. They spend a lot on athletes, but to get a kid fresh out of school that wants some clout, you're not going to get the best results from that. And I feel like the CSCS used to have a little bit of prestige. The RSCC, same thing. But seeing like who's it, Chris Romano? He's a local guy that was trying to badmouth his sleeve, and it's like, wait a second, you guys kicked me out of your Facebook group because you're telling people that push-ups are dangerous for kids, and they should be doing a dead hang. Where do those forearm flexors attach? Right at that medial epicondyle, where you're going to get the damn avulsion fracture. So it's okay to use your brain. Even after you have a degree or a certification, you can still use your brain and put a little bit of common sense into that.
Just a little bit. And then, they always have to be right and they can't be proven
Yes.
right, which is like, like I don't want to back up what you said about, getting these kids injured. I had a player from Pennsylvania came out a couple years ago. He was at Coastal Carolina, then went to Virginia for his lap. But, Coastal Carolina was 1 or 2 years removed from winning the national championship. And he was getting a lot of time because they had 6 guys injured. And I said, what are they doing? And the mother said the greatest thing to me. She's like, well, not for nothing, but how do you know that they didn't already come to school injured? And I'm like, you know what? That is one of the most intelligent things I have heard. Yeah, I don't know that, right? They may have come to Coastal Carolina with 400,000 miles on an arm that only should have 25,000 miles. You're right. You're right.
Yeah, to the same point, I think I think a lot of the not blame or responsibility, but strength coaches. What are we doing? There's I think it's Lee University in Tennessee. One of their stud outfielders had some draft interest. I think it was 2 years ago. So he's deadlifting. Of course, they want him to max out because that matters. You're you're not going to be the strongest kid on earth, so just give it up. And by the way, rip my pec off the bone with a strength coach. Never would have maxed out. Never would have gone into that passive range I can't actively get to on my own. So let's apply max load there. Really stupid. So they have him deadlifting. Kid's shoulder pops, gets the MRI results, and torn labrum. So he's out.
Done.
And the goes and tells the coach. Coach says, "Bummer."
Bummer.
But at my facility, we'd see kids come in, or they'd tell me what their strength coaches were having them do. They'd load up hundreds of pounds on the hex bar, jump up, and then try to stick the landing.
I
So
just,
if you place a 5 pound weight on your foot or you drop one from eye level, are they the same? We could just say force equals mass times acceleration, which is a small wormhole that we could also go into, and it's not
be here.
not
We'll be here.
exactly correct, but just as a basic example. So yeah, I think a lot of the responsibility is on these coaches, and it was on I think the first or second podcast I did with you, that I kind of had this epiphany when we were talking about Tom Brady's strength coach, and I thought, wait a second, it's not what he's doing that's making him successful. It's what he's not doing
Not doing. Yeah.
that's
And
making
look
him
how much heat
successful.
that guy took, right? I mean, Tom
Yeah.
Brady, the only time Tom Brady ever missed time is when his own lineman rolled into his leg and he tore it, which is completely, there's no way he could have prevented it. Other than that, the guy played, what, six? I mean, ridiculously. Yeah, it's what he's not doing. Exactly.
And it's, I've trained some of the best fighters and world champion grapplers in the world. I mean, incredible athletes. And they'll come in. Have I showed you how one can completely shift his tibia under his femur?
No, really? Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, I got it on my iPad right here. So almost, I don't know if he has any ligaments left in his knee, but
And
I've got guys.
he's still fighting? Animal.
at the highest level. But that plenty of meniscus tears, but
Sure.
the amount of things that I've had to work around and be real precise with, I'm not beating up these athletes because they're already beat up from sparring. But at the same time, these 5, 6, 7 hour practices where you're just going through the motions and you're not getting able to rest. And we used to have coach, oh, we're going to take 300 swings today. What's the goal?
What's the
If you're
purpose? What's the
tired,
goal?
if
Yep.
your swing goes to hell after 10 hard swings, then you're just causing issues. But it's they don't understand that these athletes, they're already overstressed, and then they want to add more load to that without understanding that if there's some kind of asymmetry, maybe at the hip, maybe at the foot, maybe with the spine or
And
trunk.
there's always asymmetry.
Always,
Always.
even if
Every single day I can adjust, so there's always asymmetry.
and that's a conversation that I have that's tough with strength coaches. This guy that I don't think he ever worked in my facility. He wanted to. He's got his online training and kind of self-proclaimed expert. He's young. They're all young. They're sipping a chai latte on their parents' balcony, telling you their life coach, all that stuff. But he said if you show up and your coach or trainer doesn't have a plan for you, then they failed. No, you idiot. If they have a plan for you, that means when you showed up, they didn't ask, when did you train last? Are you training today? Are you hydrated? When did you eat last? Is anything
Exactly.
tight? How's
What's your
everything
alignment
feeling?
look like? How's your foot moving? Is your spine in alignment? How's your shoulder blade moving? Exactly. The
So you have
plan
to
is
go,
dictated by the structure of what they present right in front of you at the time. Because guess
yes,
what? He could look completely different the next day.
what is available at that time? And you only need to work with what is available. If
At that
something's not
time.
available
That's
and
brilliant.
you're magnifying these compensation patterns, that's your fault. Now, of course, it's what everybody's doing. It seems safe. I mean, these assumptions are what are creating a lot of these injuries,
Well,
and
you know what they say about assume, right?
makes an ass out of you, not me. That's a that's
That's it, right? I mean, it's just, everyone will like, oh, when I went to last therapy, they had a whole exercise plan. I'm like, you realize that you present differently every day. And yeah, today we just worked on sit to stand because you had X, Y, and Z. But the reason why they can't do that is you have to understand the why. You got to tell them what the why is. And if you don't know what the why is, because you got your degree from whatever, knowing the why is the key to keeping people healthy and getting them better. Why we're doing it, what purpose, why they got injured, the why. The most important three-letter word in the dictionary. Why?
and with my clients or athletes, or if I was doing an in service or consulting, I always tell them, I want you to challenge me. I want you to
Mm-hmm.
pick apart every damn thing I do,
Mm-hmm.
because there's always going to be intention behind every single thing that we do. Why it's paired up that way, what comes first, what comes second. But back to what you were saying about the plan when they go to therapy, I went through that with my pec. It was ripped off for 2 years. Then I'm going to someone. Oh, did you notice everyone always says that they're the best?
Mm.
So I go there. Oh, this guy's the best. So I'm in there, and I'm not saying anything negative, but I'm in there with about the physical therapy I am, but not the people in there. So I'm in there with obese women, all over 50, and we're all going through the same exercises. Did we
That
have the
makes
same
that makes a
injuries?
lot of sense.
It makes a lot of sense, right? Unless maybe I have this weird, distorted view of myself. Maybe I was just like them, and I'm in the wrong, but I doubt it. But why am I going through the same basic preset protocol trash as they're going through? And then, wouldn't you know it, at the end of that, I still couldn't even do a modified push-up. And then I get it to an upper extremity class for the muscle testing internship. That was 11 months of drinking from a fire hose. So we put pec major in a shortened position. I can't resist at all. So what good was all that physical therapy and corrective exercise, which almost is all BS, if we didn't neurologically turn that back on and
Correct.
gradually raise that threshold and have strategic progressions. So it's always, with that, it's see symptom, chase symptom. Well, just because that's where the smoke is doesn't mean that's where the fire is.
If you
And
chase symptoms, you are never going to get your athlete better. You are never going to get your patient better. Symptoms is what it is, a symptom. If you don't identify the root cause and why it's the root cause, go to another place, turn around and run.
Yeah, right away. I had this mom brought her son in. I think he was around 12 or 13. Seaver's disease, Auschwitz slaughters.
Oh
And
wow.
wouldn't you know it, he came in because his arm hurt. And I told her, well, the issue is if he can't get that ground reaction force or push off and use his lower body, naturally he's going to try to use everything else that is available until it's not available. Now we have pain. And she said, well, I think he just needs a pitching coach. And I wanted
Thanks.
to say, just because you can neuter a possum, that does not make you an expert. You know, but really, but
It's,
really,
it's like the
like
old
don't
Tommy boy. If I want to get a T-bone and look up the butcher, whatever that line
100%.
was. Yeah,
A hundred
exactly.
percent, and it's but that's another aspect is these egos. The
Oh
people that
yeah,
think they have clout because they worked, and some that came out. Just throw it out there. The Dodgers organization with their high injury rates. You got guys like Croton and Buffy and all these other guys that think they're magnificent. It's like, what was the injury rate when you were there? And if you were making such an impact, why are you not still there?
exactly.
If you showed that value and you bring that much value to where the organization is going to get a return on that investment, which is probably not that big, why aren't you there anymore?
It's a great
Now,
question.
Ryan Yoshida from Armored Heat, he's a great guy. He's ahead of the curve. I do like him. So
I like
I'm
some of
not
their stuff. I've seen some of their stuff. Yeah.
I'm not lumping him in there. We've had some great phone discussions, and also he's not a clout chaser. So
And then, well, then you got the parents who chase that, right? I mean, you got
yeah,
to keep up with the joke. Oh, my kid, not only they chase the travel ball, but then they, chase these gurus. And, I did a whole podcast on, parents contributing to the injury rate because they do, because they don't listen to experts. They listen to perceived experts, right? Or social, like, what is their background? Do they, but I don't know.
that's
But
a that's a tough part. And just because someone played at a high level, it doesn't mean they're qualified to give instruction.
no
I've
way.
worked I've worked with and around some of the best athletes in the world, some of the best fighters in the world, and their instruction is terrible. So just because they were able to do it, it doesn't mean they understand why things are done that way. It doesn't mean they
Why?
understand how things function. It doesn't mean that when their trainer was taking them through something, they didn't understand that there was actually a goal. Um, so I got to show you this real quick. So can you see that
Oh,
non-union fracture?
I can. Oh, the collar. Whoa, what happened there?
So first rib. So this is I think a 12-year-old softball player. So goes in, has a fracture of the rib, and do you know what the ortho sends her to physical therapy? What in the hell or God's green earth or whatever universe you come from, do you think a physical therapist is going to do for that fractured rib?
Nothing.
Immobilize the damn thing and let it heal. So after
Right.
2 visits, crying in pain, and
Well,
that's what we ended up with.
I bet you they
Started with
had her do eyes, Y's, and T's, right?
Yeah, that rolling up a medicine. And by
Oh,
the way, that thrower's 10 needs to be put in a garbage can and wheeled out to the curb. Like for God's sakes, for to be called to use the name institute in medicine, and you're that far behind to where you're still not even looking at foot function or the trunk. And I know this because I've had patients sent to me from those PTs. Well, they didn't send them to me. The athletes still had arm pain after they finished PT. So I don't know if the insurance got sick of paying for it, but they were clear to throw. And again, they have no scapular retraction. They have no trunk rotation to their throwing side. And that's not even including a lot of the jacked up hip and foot
after
function issues that
after
I've seen
already
too.
going to a guru, right? That's what pisses me off. It
A
does.
guru. And, I've talked to a couple research groups recently, and some call them research groups, some call them innovation. Look, there's been no innovation from these places. What has made a noticeable difference? And I always say, if you look at the Kinetic Arms testimonials, reviews, we haven't paid a single dollar, and I haven't seen any product out there that has that many compelling stories and positive feedback. So that's why I always say I challenge whatever research organization, whatever group is selling products. As we've said, we can do it live on a stage.
It
Do your
works.
assessment, give your correctives. I won't watch. I'll show you every single thing you missed and how to be more efficient. but there's got to be change. And you know, the first one through the wall gets the bloodiest, and as you know, I'm more than happy to be that guy. So yeah, I love the breaking down the science of it, and you know, looking at how things are done. But it's just interesting that there's this kind of narrow academic spectrum where, you know, if someone learned something in school or in a certification, it's probably outdated. It might be the professor wrote the textbook, but you know, a college is a business. You
Mm-hmm.
know, they're not looking to give you the latest and greatest. They've already got the curriculum preset. So I think I was talking to a neurologist, and she was telling me it's about 10 years from when something is kind of proven in research until it becomes common practice. So of course we've got the insurance company loopholes and things like that.
Oh yeah.
Dozens of stories with that stuff, especially when I had to go to Germany for two major reconstructions after educating the surgeons here. But yeah, back to layback. It's kind of like these Pilates terms where they're saying you got to get long here. Well, what does that mean? Or what drives me nuts. I know I'm going on a rant. Engage your core. Did they fall over when they walked through the door? Then shut up about the damn core. Unless when you sit down and you're on the toilet, you really engage your core. But
Absolutely you
when you're
do.
doing a squat or something to contract your abs or your trunk flexors, um, it blows my mind. That and
Buzz
yeah.
buzzwords. Well, Jason, I appreciate you taking the time to coming on again. And how do people find the Kinetic Arm? How do they get in touch with you? This is a great product that I wholeheartedly endorse. So tell the audience how they find you.
Go to thekинeticarm.com. We've got some great information on there. On the How It Works page, we've got some recent research, case studies, some that we haven't put on there yet that are pretty excellent as far as what the data is showing. And we didn't take part in any of those; those were just done off-site. So it's great to, you know, have people reach out. And recently, the Georgia Tech biomedical engineering students reached out, and that was great. But yeah, visit thekинeticarm.com, on social media at the Kinetic Arm. And if there's any question you have that the website can't answer, we'd be more than happy to help. So thanks again for having me and
You're
getting
welcome.
to nerd out a little bit.
I love it. So you can visit my social media at Dr. K McGovern PT, my YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe. And thanks for listening, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, everybody.